Hello and welcome to the first video on this channel around Kundalini energy, Kundalini activations, Kundalini yoga, Kundalini, everything that I currently know and want to share around Kundalini. So what is Kundalini, right? Kundalini is, first and foremost to me, an energy force that flows through each of us. And it's energy. Energy is only energy. Like there are different names for different types of energy. There's Kundalini energy, there's Chi, there's all of these different energies that have been labeled as this energy, that energy. Ultimately, it's all energy. And there are these different frequencies of energy. And Kundalini energy, it's said to originate within the base of the spine and to move through the chakra system, right? And whereas Chi is a bit more of a circular system within the body, and Kundalini energy moves in more of a flow, I guess, serpent-like energy. And that's why we so often see the serpent when we talk about Kundalini, and then when we see different illustrations of it, we have that visual, that serpent, that flow-like energy. And I've experienced this type of movement as well within, say, Kundalini activation, where the body, it moves in this flow like this. And so within those Kundalini activations, those are a few different ways of looking at them. Ultimately, it's a lie-down practice where your state of mind is shifted into a relaxation and open reception to the energy that already flows within you that doesn't flow so much, like, if that makes sense. So this energy is here, right? And it wants to flow, it naturally flows, but there are restrictions and within our body and like within our lives that we develop. And some of those restrictions can be like, for me, what has been a restriction, say like within my throat, within speaking, there are restrictions maybe within our heart, within how we feel, how we open up to others, restrictions throughout our body, and also associating with that chakra system. So what Kundalini activation does is it allows us to enter into this state of surrender, right? Where we're lying there, we're not asleep, but we're lying down, and in this state we are, my activations, listening to music that is specifically designed to guide you into also that flow, like I was just describing with my hands. That music is designed with that sequence of, okay, we're going to go down into deep relaxation. Okay, we're going to go up a little bit into allowing some of that energy to flow, and then we're going to go back down into that deep relaxation, and then we're going to go up and down. And that, within my activations, again, is done typically 3 times. And so that's the activation portion. The like relaxation portion of that is where we are we're receiving, but ultimately we're allowing our own energy force to move, because everything that happens to us, everything that is received, is already within us. It's only a matter of allowing it to flow through, because again, those blockages where we feel them, those are restricting our flow. So our receptiveness is in allowing that energy to move. And yes, So with our activations, that is a very rudimentary introduction to an activation. And then the Kundalini yoga side, which this is my left hand, so activations, and then on the right hand, our yoga side, Kundalini yoga. And this Kundalini yoga, or yoga in general, as we have like here in the States, so you're doing hatha yoga, you're doing any kind of yoga. And for me, this looks a bit more like martial arts, any kind of a physical practice that is designed to bring you in tune with your body. So in yoga, we have, a series of postures, movements where we're flowing. We are maybe focusing on increasing our strength, our flexibility, our coordination, or this or that. The same as within karate as well. We have these practices within my martial arts practice, and we have the intention there being to increase those aspects within our body, but also what we're doing is training our mind. We're never working entirely with the right hand or the left hand, our right hand being our masculine, our left hand being our feminine, and we're always working a bit with each, but we do focus on one or the other, and then the other we naturally work as well. Activations being more of a feminine left hand practice, and then physical practices, more movement based, more conscious based practices being more of that masculine side, because we are thinking, we're planning, we're structured, we are intentionally moving. And so what that does is it allows us to say, okay, I want to focus on this part. I want to focus on opening up my heart. I want to focus on opening up my voice, my throat. I want to focus on these pieces. Or I want to focus on my flexibility or my strength, or anything that's you can choose to focus on. And then when we go back into those activations, now that's a sort of integration time where, again, that energy can flow through. And because we've already worked on a particular aspect, that will naturally be a focus within that activation, as well as improving the overall flow of energy throughout the body here. And so those are those two sides. Just a bit on Kundalini yoga specifically. So this differs from hatha yoga in that it is specific time lengths for specific postures and kriyas and meditations, and it involves more vocal chanting, it involves more repetition. And so, for example, in a Kundalini yoga session, you'll open up with chanting, and then you'll open up with some warm-ups, and then within your Kundalini yoga session, you may do one single practice, like say the breath of fire. You'll be going and you'll have your arms up, and you'll be breathing in through your nose and through your belly, ultimately, and like for say 3 minutes. You're beginning 3 minutes, maybe 11 minutes. You work your way really up to that. It's a very masculine practice and can be very efficient in focusing on those different elements. Like doing that breath will really stimulate your brain, really oxygenates you. There's other, breathing. Let's look at like say nostril breathing. So there's like left nostril breathing where you can really focus on opening up that left pathway and having the oxygen flow. You can do an alternate nostril breathing, focusing on that circulation, either going from in on the left and out on the right, or in on the right and out on the left. And now I don't focus on Kundalini energy. I have Kundalini yoga. I have practiced it. I have going through a training program for it, but it's not my focus. If you're interested in learning more about Kundalini Yoga, I recommend taking a Kundalini Yoga class. But that is essentially the breathwork part, and then for the movement part, very similar to Hatha Yoga in the different positions. The difference primarily being that you'll hold a position for a while. So while I'm seated here, it's a bit challenging, but say you're in, what do I do here? Downward dog, you'll hold that triangle pose, different names, and that's a bit of a difference there. And then for the different poses, so you'll have, like, for instance, you might have even like you can do this maybe, an ab exercise where you're putting out your legs up here, do one foot at a time, or alternating. And then you might do that for, again, like 3 minutes, 11 minutes, and 5 minutes. But you'll do that for that set amount of time. You'll do that one practice for that amount of time. And it's very focused, very specific. And then that contrast is, again, Kundalini activations. So what I do instead of Kundalini Yoga, although I have that as part of my practice, my primary practice is Shaolin Kempo Karate, and that is my right hand side practice. Also includes breathing practices, different techniques, different forms, different stances, and then within yoga as well. Some of those pieces, they really will mix in. We would have different poses and postures that you'll see across each of these different practices. And yeah, so for right hand and left hand, we have the masculine and then the feminine, and then we have activations we talked about on the left hand being that practice of that flow. Let's talk about some other flow left hand based practices, which are ultimately anything where you're just really openly expressing. These can be writing, they can be arts practices, they can be all of these different flow based practices where you're accessing that left side of your brain. And the Kundalini energy, it has that distinct movement, but is by no means limited to just that movement. And that flow-like movement is typically achieved when you do reach that state of more openness. Before that point, it can be more rigid, it can be not a lot of movement. It might just be during an activation, like a little hand movement. It can be a little jerky. And then within that as well, the openness of that, again, that left side of the brain, there's so many ways that you can open that up aside from Kundalini activations. Just like there are all those right hand paths of practice, like physical practice and yoga and Kundalini yoga and martial arts and like all of these things, there are so many left hand ways as well. And Kundalini being the focus of this video. In addition to that, there are, like I mentioned, there are writing, there's art, there is like poetry, these language pieces as well. There are like psychedelics, there are all of these things that open up your mind, and it's really limitless to how you can access these different states. And I think that's the key here, is that there is, like specifically within Kundalini energy, there are Kundalini activations or Kundalini yoga practices, and there's so much more that I don't even know about yet, that many of us don't even know about yet. And it's always going to be in that state. There's always going to be more depth, more discovery, and that's why this is an introductory video on Kundalini activations, yoga, understanding the left hand and the right hand paths, and Kundalini energy from a holistic approach, and ultimately diving deeper and deeper and deeper into Kundalini energy, into my research of what is already available to us within the US than where I live. Like knowledge, that's what I mean by that, is knowledge that is available to the Western culture, because Kundalini does originate from Eastern culture, India, and within Hinduism. And so what is available is, one, limited to what has been brought over here, what has been translated over here into English. And because from the language perspective too, like going into that, it's not the same to learn something in English as it is to learn something in the language that it originates in. And so that's another piece as well that we can dive deeper into in another video. But yeah, it's what has been brought here and what is available like publicly, books that are available on Kundalini, and the resources, things that are here that are accessible to me, and then also my own experience with the energy as a Kundalini facilitator, as a Kundalini codes activation facilitator. And so that combination of those two, as well as how my practice within martial arts, within language, within nature and gardening influences all of that. So that is what I share with you all, is my knowledge, my research of what is already there and available to me, as well as my experience with this combined with the other practices that make up my experience with this energy. So thank you so much, and if you have any questions, anything you'd like to share, definitely feel free to do so in the comments down below, and we will flow with it, and another video on a Kundalini topic will be on its way. Thanks. Bye guys!